She said, she'll take me anywhere, she'll take me anywhere, as long as she stays with me. She said, she'll take me anywhere, she'll take me anywhere, as long as I stay queen. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Yes, yes, Molly's lips. Dance to the music, play the fucking music. Dance to the music, play the fucking music. Dance to the music, play the fucking. Hey, me Matt here, and I've been meaning to do this a long time ago, but never found footage. I found footage like a couple years ago, but then I got deleted. So, basically a whole show from Raw and SmackDown, talking about the last WWF show of Raw and SmackDown. Now, I mean, this was 2002. This was where the World Wildlife Fund was basically calling out World Wrestling Federation for not honoring their agreement. So, therefore, World Wildlife Fund was going to sue WWF and Vince McMahon, but nobody knew this at the time. Like, I didn't know that this was going to end, honestly. I feel like this was just another Raw, but it was an interesting show. So, let's get on with the first one. Let's talk about Monday Night Raw. Of course, we're going to start with Monday Night Raw, which aired April 29th in Buffalo, New York at the HSBC Arena. This was an interesting show, and I mean, we were going to have Hulk Hogan versus William Regal, and I thought, okay, I know I've seen this show before, and once again, I had said I found footage years ago, but you know, there it is. Never in a million years did I think this was going to happen. I mean, Hulk Hogan has wrestled a lot of main eventers, and so, like The Rock, Stone Cold, well, actually, no, never Stone Cold, Undertaker, obviously. Speaking of which, this was going on a feud with Hogan for the WWF Championship, and yeah, this kind of was like, I already made my bones about it. I really didn't like the fact that Hogan got the win against Triple H at Backlash, who had just won at WrestleMania 18 against Jericho. Anyways, got Eddie Guerrero versus Jeff Hardy for the Intercontinental Championship, and like, there was a point, I'm sure, that because Chris Jericho would have lost it to Eddie, but I'm not sure what episode that was. And so this was an interesting match. I mean, these two guys are, well, yeah, I could say it, are and were two of the best wrestlers in the company at the time. And yeah, basically Eddie beat the shit out of Jeff, and we got Jeff doing a superplex onto Eddie, and yeah, taking him down, and we do Whisper in the Wind, which Eddie comes back with the High Fly Flow, or 5-star Frog Splash, to retain the title So, I wish I could see the whole show, but obviously, right now I saw highlights from, I'll just shout them out here. Rock 31.6 AE. So there it is. And then we have, there's this whole thing, and I do remember this too, actually. It was obviously right after WrestleMania 18, The Rock and Hulk Hogan had their match. Also, you look at Stone Cold versus Scott Hall, which was an interesting match. Not worth even going, but there was a point where you have Ric Flair kind of just screwing over Austin, and you know, at first it was a mistake, but Austin gets into the ring, he calls out Ric Flair, Rick comes out, and yeah, they go back and forth. Actually, Austin wants Big Show, who's also a part of the NWO at this point, and that does make sense because he was in WCW. Yes, he was a part of the NWO, Black and White. So Rick is on stage and they're jaw-jacking back and forth. Rick apologizes for the botch or whatever, and Big Show can't make it. But we're gonna have a take team match. We got Steve Austin and Bradshaw, two Texas boys, who will take on Scott Hall and X-Pac. And Ric Flair is gonna be the special guest referee. Nothing wrong with that, eh? But it's gonna be an interesting match, and yeah, there it is. Yeah, backstage segment with Booker T and Goldust, one of the greatest tag teams of this decade, I guess. And he's not gonna be teaming with Booker T in this match, comparing it to Home Alone. Yeah. So we got Booker T versus Rob Van Dam. This was a pretty interesting match. You got Booker T starting off with chops, and then got a power bomb, and which is kind of rare, I think. And yeah, so you also have Rob Van Dam do the high fly flow, getting the win from Booker T, and so there it is. Yeah. No, it is what it is. Got Molly Holly walking in on Jazz, who was doing push-ups, and yeah, basically they're having an altercation. And unfortunately, and again, this is kind of where WWE was, or WWF was rather, Bully Ray challenged Jazz to a hardcore title match. And I mean, look, we just saw an intergender match on Saturday, and so they're not rare, obviously, they happen a lot, but this was, at the time, was interesting because I had no idea that this was a good idea. In my opinion, I just think that was kind of to boost the shocking ratings, but there it is. Plus, we all saw Dudley Boyz powerbomb Mae Young off the stage at one point, so it's like, okay, why the fuck not? Now we have a match. We got Shawn Stasiak versus Brock Lesnar. Yeah, Brock Lesnar made his WWF debut with Paul Heyman during the three-way match for the hardcore title, power bombing Spike Dudley and Al Snow and Maven. Yeah, this was cool to see WWF and Brock Lesnar in the same sentence. Like, it's not like I don't forget that, I just feel like that's really cool. And I mean, he's not going to be the WWE champion for a long time, but at least for another couple months. But the way he just kind of comes in and wreaks havoc and all this other stuff. But the match happens, Stasiak goes right after Brock. Brock pause him a few times, and we do an overhead belly to belly, an F5, and helicopter bomb for the win. And yeah, we knew Brock Lesnar was going to win. And again, here's a guy that's still going today. And there's a rumor that he will retire this year, but we'll see. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because I feel like with all the stuff that's happened in the last year or so, I feel Brock is, that just happened the way it did. But this was interesting. I feel, and look, Brock Lesnar being the guy who was the youngest WWE champion, that'll be down the road when he faces The Rock earlier in the year. But taking on Shawn Stasiak, and I wish that there would be more from Stasiak, but it is what it is. He left later that year, and of course you got Rick wanting to apologize to Austin. He finds Deborah, who was married to Steve in real life and was the manager, so she slaps Rick for his troubles, which I'm sure he gets a lot in real life. So we get this match. I'm not even sure. No, it's not even the main event, because we have Hogan and Regal. But yeah, we got NWO, which is X-Pac and but X-Pac comes out and they're beating the shit out of him. Of course, Rick is the referee, and yeah, it was interesting because I thought X-Pac had a partner in this match, but it just seems to be a handicap. But yeah, Austin goes for the stunner, pins X-Pac, and Flair counts to 3 without seeing X-Pac's foot. So this was an interesting feud because we had Scott and Steve, but I don't remember him feuding with the other NWO guys, except I do know that there was a lot of things where Ric Flair did turn on Austin afterwards. Then we get a hooded Big Evil Undertaker coming out, also Hulk Hogan, and basically talks about the past. They've met before, they've had a match or two before, and yeah, they go back and forth, and yeah, this was just, it was filler basically for the match that was coming up. Then we have the hardcore title match. We've got Jazz versus Bubba Ray Dudley, and just kind of like, yeah, it was there. And yeah, basically, just filler match once again. Like, Jazz tried to get the win, but there were weapons involved. Stevie Richards comes out. He has a guitar, knocks Bubba out, and he gets the win, winning the hardcore title. So I'm not even sure how long this lasted, but this was just kind of there, in my opinion. When we have William Regal backstage selling merchandise, talking about Hulk Hogan and the match coming up, and basically there it is. I thought he was selling stuff because it was kind of like that, but he is basically just talking about Hogan. We got a backstage segment where Austin and Bradshaw are drinking beer, and yeah, next week it would be the NWO versus Austin, Bradshaw, and Ric Flair. Now, for those of you that don't know or don't remember, that's where Rick turns on Austin, so... Got the European title, Goldust versus Spike Dudley. This was an interesting match, you know. Goldust does the Shattered Dream, Spike Dudley did the Dudley Drop, the Dudley Dog, to retain the title. And, you know, it's very unfortunate that the European title retired after a year or so. It's just kind of like, I wish it would just come back. Like, I wish Gunther would introduce that title. I mean, he has the power now, but he's going for bigger things. But yeah, I forgot that Spike was the European champion, so... We have the main event, of course, because Hogan. But have... Oh, it's a non-title match, obviously. Hulk Hogan versus William Regal. This was interesting. Of course, before the match starts, William Regal wanted to offer Hogan some tea, and Hogan takes a sip, spits it out, and Regal, the match starts. So, yeah. Oh, well, actually, it didn't really go nowhere, because Undertaker came out and beat the shit out of Hogan, making him bleed, and yeah. They go back and forth, and Undertaker does a choke slam, and that's how the last episode of WWF Monday Night Raw ends. Yes, this is brutal. Yes, I will edit this. I thought it was gonna be good. I really did, but... Again, I don't think anybody knew what was going on, and that is just kind of the way it was, but... Anyways, I will talk about SmackDown. Bye.
So you know that them cutting WCW was a long time coming. I don't think that's the case at all. If you look at some of his earlier interviews,